Hi, I'm Jan Broberg, your host and fellow survivor. Welcome to Trauma Interrupted. On this show, we name the wounds that trauma and abuse leave behind. We do the work it takes to heal, and together, we find the way forward. I'm so glad you're here. Let's get to work. There are some experiences that change your life in an instant. For Kelly Sutliff, the moment her relationship turned violent was only the beginning. What came next was something she never expected. The stalking, the fear, the long fight to feel safe again. All of those things inside a system that seemed unable to protect her. The thing that makes Kelly's story especially powerful is that she isn't just a survivor, she's a licensed psychotherapist. She understood abuse, she understood trauma, she knew the warning signs, and still she found herself living through something that would transform her life forever. But this conversation isn't just about what happened to Kelly. It's about what happened next. It's about a remarkable dog named Stella. It's about reclaiming safety when the world feels unsafe. It's about healing and community, justice, and what becomes possible when survivors stop waiting for systems to change and start building something better for themselves. Today, Kelly is the founder of Kelly's Canines, Tales of Courage, a nonprofit providing trained protection dogs to survivors of interpersonal violence. And what she's creating is changing lives. I can just see the tails wagging, can't you? This conversation is honest, emotional, hopeful, and deeply important. Welcome to Trauma Interrupted. Let's get to work. We are so excited to have Kelly Sutliff in the studio today, and I already feel a deep connection to her from some of the work that she's doing, a foundation that you started. And I just want you to know that when we talk, you just need to unfold for us, because people will want to know how you got to the place you are at, how you started this foundation, how you became a psychotherapist. I mean, you went through a lot.
It didn't.
Welcome.
It's been a long road to get to where I am today. So thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here, especially with you and your story. You're an inspiration. So to be a part of your platform is a dream. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for that. And hopefully what we're doing here on the podcast on Trauma Interrupted is helping others see that their trauma can be interrupted, but it takes work. It takes intention. It takes doing things that, quite frankly, often are unfair, but it doesn't matter. It's unfair. As you go back in time and think about how your story began, where you began and where you got to today, what would be a key moment where you would say, let's start here? Because when this happened, I knew something had to change, or I had to do something. Talk about that moment where your own realization of the trauma you had been going through could get better. You could get better.
Yeah. So I think, my domestic violence incident happened on December 16th, 2019. And that was the first and the only time that my ex, his name is Chris, ever laid a hand on me. And it was that night that he tried to take my life from me. And I think after that happened, it really took a while for my brain to process what I had just gone through. And, being a psychotherapist, and I was a psychotherapist prior, I didn't specialize in domestic violence like I do now. But I guess I never really realized that leaving is just the tip of the iceberg. There is so much that comes after, with family courts and criminal courts. And I think it was after that I really realized I'm in a lot of trouble here. And leaving isn't the fix. Something else needs to happen. So after, that incident happened, I got restraining orders, I had left, and then the stalking started to happen, both physically, he was driving by and doing a lot of things around my house to let me know that he was watching. There was also some online harassment and whatnot. And what I found was that the legal system just wasn't keeping me safe. My local police were wonderful, but their hands were tied. The Morris County Prosecutor's Office, I feel like, just failed me repeatedly and left and right. And it was in that moment when the stalking was so bad and the police and the prosecutor's office, they all said, we believe he is stalking you. We actually think we have him because the police had a deer camera in front of my house. We believe we have him on our camera, but we can't get the license plate and we can't prove it's him behind the car. And I remember saying to them, like, well, then what would you like me to do? Have him roll down the window and ask him if I can take a picture? And it really was then that I realized I need to do something to protect myself. And it was then that I brought this up to a friend, and the friend said to me, I think you need one of those dogs that bite. And I thought to myself, I didn't know that normal people could have them. I thought it was just police and military. So then I did some research, jumped online, and I found Metro Canine Academy up in Randolph, New Jersey. I live in New Jersey. And a few days later, I think it was a day or two later, I went up there and I met my first protection dog who I ended up buying, Stella. And that is truly when my healing journey began. It's really when I started to take my life back.
Oh my gosh, that just gives me chills. I literally have chills all over my body. My goosebumps are like, they signify something very special is happening, whether it's something to run from or it's something to run towards. And this is something to run towards. What you've done is just in a nutshell, explained how we take our life back. How we take our life back is we take action. And what that became for you was finding a protection dog from a friend's suggestion and thinking I could have that because nothing was happening. The legal system, hands tied. Here's a camera. We think it's him, but sorry, can't do anything. It's just so insanely frustrating. And I'd love to have a conversation about that too. What do we need to do to make this stalking thing? I mean, I had to take out a stalking injunction when after the fact of the guy shows up, this is years after the kidnappings, years after, I have, 5 kids around, my stepdaughters, my son, I'm married. I had no idea that he would figure out where I lived. Why would he care? I thought he only cared, was into little girls, which he was. I wasn't the only one. There were girls before,
Right.
young, 9 to 12, 14. That's that's the sweet spot there for my particular offender and perpetrator. But, what is he doing? Because we had written a book, because we were going to share the story, because we were starting to go public with our story. And I guess, seeing my picture on a poster and only living an hour from where I lived, which was not in Idaho. And he did not live in Idaho. He's in Nevada. I'm in southern Utah. And all of a sudden he shows up. He's in the parking lot. I'm giving a speech. And, just the whole thing and how it unfolded was so surreal to have somebody do that and to go to court and have him show up because he got to have equal time. I'm here to defend myself. Like, this girl's just looking for her 15 minutes of fame. She made up this story. And I
Right.
felt like this little 12-year-old girl walking in there.
Yeah.
And I'm almost 40 years old, and this
Yeah.
whole thing happening at that time. So when it's fresh, like you just left somebody who tried to take your life, and then you go and say, this person is driving by my house, and I can't believe that things haven't changed more, that we can do something about that.
I agree. And I have to say that, people always say, oh my God, what you went through that night, so traumatizing. And yes, it absolutely was. But what I dealt with every single day after that incident was worse. The abuse that I dealt with from the criminal justice system, as well as the lack of safety. And like you said, like the answer of, what do you want us to do? Even though we know that this is happening legally, we can't prove it. That's where I think the problem lies, is that they have to be able to prove something without a reasonable doubt. So even though they had Chris driving the car he had at the time was a black Acura, even though they said to me, we've got this black Acura on camera. We think we've got him in his mother's car driving by too. Why isn't that enough? Who else is going to be driving by in those cars? And it wasn't like Chris was just driving by. He was pulling in my driveway, revving the engine and pulling, like, to me, how that is not enough evidence when at the time there was an active restraining order on him to violate him on that restraining order. It's just so frustrating. And I think there needs to be more done. Like, I understand that everything costs money, right? But when you've got someone who the police said to me, at one point I said to one of the police officers, like, I think he's going to kill me. And the response from him was, I can't tell you that he's not going to. So everyone really felt like I was at such a high risk. Why are they not paying an off-duty officer or an officer that's undercover to sit at my house and catch him? Like, why are we not doing stuff like that? I have to be honest with you, Jan. At one point, and luckily I was financially able to do this. However, I recognize that most survivors are not. But let me tell you something. I blew through a lot of money doing stuff like this to keep myself safe. I hired private security that sat outside in my neighbor's driveway to try to stay hidden. I think it was a 2 weeks total. I did 1 week a certain month and another week, another month to try to catch Chris. And, why am I doing that? Why is that my responsibility?
It feels to me like it's the only crime, like crimes against women, children, boys, men too. I know it happens a lot with boys, but it feels like this is like the one area that that the person that is, robbing your house, they go after them. They try to find them. They do this stuff. But it's like the opposite. The people who are saying this is happening to me as a tween or a teen or a child, now an adult. It's the one thing where we have to prove it ourselves. Like, we're the guilty party until we're proven innocent. It's totally backwards. It's the one area. It's like, why is that? Is it because the long held belief that, they're just, they're making up stories and they're crazy and they're so emotional? Is it that? What is it?
Yeah. And you know what? What Detective Littman, who, he's retired now, but after he retired, he and I had become very good friends. He was the detective on my case. He was amazing. He was a godsend from the beginning of this. Thank God I have him. He believed everything I said. And he knew that Chris was really doing some diabolical, manipulative stuff to make me look like I was crazy when I reported it. Like, for instance, one of the things Chris did was at one point, this was, I think, late August, early September of 2020, I woke up in the morning and I had chocolate covered pretzels over my fence, alongside my fence. That was one of Chris's treats that he would always bring me home. And my dog had the chocolate covered pretzels in his mouth. So I beelined it. I'm pulling them out of his mouth. And I remember I called my lawyers immediately, obviously, after I got my dogs inside and cleaned up all the chocolate covered pretzels. And I said to my lawyers, like, this is what Chris just did. He threw chocolate covered pretzels over my fence. But who the hell do I call? I cannot call the police because they're going to think I'm crazy. Do I call Willy Wonka? So it was that kind of stuff. And then there was another incident. Whether or not this is associated with Chris, I think it's just important to tell because it also just shows what this stalking behavior does to a victim. There was an early morning arrest. And again, it was within 6 months after my incident happened, where the park that I always walked through early in the morning with my one dog, Stella, after I got her, there was arrest where there was a man sleeping in his car and he had guns and the police ended up arresting him. So now I'm thinking, oh my God, this is someone that Chris hired to kill me, because why is this man at 7 a.m. from out of state, who I found out was former military and so was Chris, randomly sleeping in this park that I walk through every single morning? And where he was more secluded. So again, and I remember calling the police and saying, hey, listen, are we sure this is not associated with Chris? Um, so I think, stalking really is so dangerous, not only physically, but also emotionally, I think, to victims and survivors, and not enough is done to stop or prevent it.
Wow. It's so interesting, because I don't know if what we're doing, like we're standing side by side as a founding partner for another survivor who was in my online community. That's how I met her, who now has created also like a foundation around this one thing, which is to have and create a children's movement. So when you think about the unprotected classes, think of children, tweens, teens, young adults. I don't know how old you were when all of this happened, but to me, and you as a psychotherapist, I know will agree with me, your brain isn't fully developed till you're 26, 25, 26 is what they say, right? The frontal, you can't expect someone under that age to be able to begin to maneuver a master manipulator, sociopathic, psychopathic manipulator who you are now in a relationship with, a narcissist, all those things that they now have, because you didn't just suffer. I know it was the one time when it was so bad you knew he was trying to kill you, but you were strangulation happened to you more than once by this person. And so I don't know how old you were. It doesn't matter so much as it does how far in your field of psychotherapy were you at the time, and how much further have you come since then? And how do you think your brain, if we could get somehow a different classification than without a shadow of a doubt, no, why don't we hook these people up to some kind of a machine? We can do it. I know the technology has to exist that shows, oh, this part of their brain lights up. They're definitely a sociopath or whatever.
Yeah.
There's something out there that's
It's
better
true.
than DNA, that's better than without a shadow of a doubt. There are things that we could be using, because this is ridiculous.
Yeah. No, you're 100% right. And listen, I'm a therapist. I fully believe in talk therapy. This has been my career since I graduated college in 2005. So when this happened to me, I was, I think, 39 years old. Don't quote me on that. I can't do the math that quick in my head.
Well, you look so
But I was
young. It's hard for
39
me to
years.
believe.
Thank you. Oh, thank you.
You don't even look
Thank
39.
you. Thanks. Well, now I'm
Beautiful woman.
44.
Okay. So this is still fresh. I mean, 5 years is not that far away
Yeah.
from the incident or the defining moment. Okay. Yes.
Right. So I
Go
was
ahead.
pretty much in my career, but you know what's so interesting? And people, and that's actually, I have to be honest with you, Jan, that's one of the reasons I spoke out and did the show Toxic, because I wanted people to understand that this can happen to anybody. I'm a trained psychotherapist. We've heard all the stories. I've dealt with people who, I believe may have been abusers and whatnot in my private practice. But I think it gives credence to the fact that manipulators are really good at what they do. And I truly think for Chris, all of his exes, they have really high powered jobs. And I think for him, it's a little bit of a game. Like, he likes the fact that he's going for what society would deem as very intelligent women. And it's a game for him to see if he can manipulate them. So I was a game for him. And he's, again, I'm not giving him a compliment. I would never want someone to call me manipulative, but he's great at what he does. He is very manipulative. So I think that also made me realize that as a therapist, people can really say what they want, and some of them are incredibly believable with their words, but it doesn't always mean that is who they are. So I think that's helped me as a psychotherapist and just as a person and a woman in general.
Yeah, that's really good because, when you think about physical safety, especially you're petite, I'm pretty petite, when people spend a lot of their efforts, if taking a karate class or a physical safety kind of class helps you feel empowered, great. But to think that you are going to fight or have the physical ability to withstand what you went through, you're not. And so much of the time, I feel like because it's something we can see and put our eyes on, and we can be like, oh, okay, well, that's good. We'll teach young women how to, karate chop somebody or run away or bite or whatever. Great. Okay. That's fine. I'm not saying don't do it, but I just feel like, what you are doing is actually a solution that affects a person's physical power with the dogs. We're going to talk about that next. Physical and the psychological. It's more about this emotional, psychological. How could I, as a psychotherapist, how could I have, let this happen to me? And you probably knew not to say that to yourself, but most people would totally say that to themselves. Like, I should have.
And I still
And I
did.
tell people,
I
yeah,
still did. Yep. And even my
don't,
own, because, I think every therapist should be in therapy at some point in their lives. And I've been in therapy, my own therapy, in and out of my whole life. And at the time I was with Chris, I was in therapy. So even my therapist met Chris. She even said it and said it to me like, I'm mad at myself. I didn't see. So it's just such a normal thing for us all to say. Absolutely.
and is that maybe what's tied into this whole back ass word legal system? Like, well, she shoulda, she coulda, he, I don't know. Maybe they brought it on. You know what I mean? There's this, and I want that to go away. I want that narrative to be gone because we are intelligent women. These predators are not stupid. And like you said, maybe it's more of a game on some level. Like, I want the very smartest ones. If I can get them, ha ha ha. And to me, that means that the legal system has to get smart. They have to get smarter. We have to figure out more intelligent ways to see and prosecute and trap and get the bad guys. Me
Yeah.
mad. And I know I sound very rudimentary, but I'm like, this is ridiculous. I want your voice and my voice and about a million other voices to come together in this fight for children's civil rights, right? As a piece of we have three pillars in my foundation, and one is justice, and that we stand by anything that is trying to somehow get more justice into the system, because there's so few people that get justice. Even today. I mean, definitely back in the 1970s, of course, people are like, well, that was then. I'm like, yeah, that was then and this is now. And guess what? It's exactly the
Yeah.
same. People want to believe
Yeah.
that somehow they would see it and that the law would protect them and that it would do something for them. And every survivor I know currently, right now, today, in this 2026, is expressing the same thing. I couldn't get any justice. I don't know if you ever did.
Agree.
Or if he's still walking the streets.
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I didn't get justice. And I have to agree with your sentiments. Now that I really work with a lot of survivors and I've talked to many survivors, I have to be honest with you. And as sad as this sounds, I have never had one survivor say, I found my justice through the criminal justice system. And that's why I did Toxic. That's why I did the television show, because the system failed me. So I told everyone that Chris was going to drag out both the divorce, which he did, as well as the criminal trial, which he also did as well. And I told them he's going to plead, but he will drag this out to the 11th hour. And that's exactly what he did. He ended up pleading guilty to aggravated assault by strangulation, criminal mischief, because he did $63,000 worth of damage to my home in 45 minutes, simultaneously assaulting me, and possession of a deadly weapon for a military knife that he held to my throat. And Chris was given 3 years probation. He never served. It is laughable. It is a joke. 100.
It does.
Never
It
served a
feels like
minute in jail.
oh, just makes me so upset. And of
Yeah.
course I laugh because I'm like, doesn't this make everybody listening just, I mean, it's
Yeah.
so ridiculous.
I have also
Obviously,
never
there
had
was obviously plenty of evidence. Good grief,
There was so much
$63,000 of
camera
damage to your
footage, yep.
home and strangled you almost to death and knife and the whole thing. And that's it? 3 years probation so he can walk around and find his next victim?
Yeah.
I just
Which
don't
he
get
did.
it.
And crazy you should say that, Jan. Crazy you should say that, because at his sentencing hearing, when he was given the 3 years probation, another woman had a restraining order out on him. And the courts knew it because the judge made reference to it, and so did the prosecutor. And they still said, okay, 3 years probation. And Chris went on to, whether off the record, on the record, but Chris went on to further terrorize people.
Wow.
To the point where I have been told to this day, he is still causing chaos in people's lives.
Oh my gosh. And like you said, you were someone who had a profession and had the means to finally hire your own private security and all of those things. Most survivors, like you also said, do not. They don't. What they do is they move 23 times. I have a friend who moved so many times because she had a stalker as well. And this was over a short period of time. This is within, 5 or 6 years, and then the worst. And almost died happened. And I'm like, how much evidence does a person need? Anyway, we could bellyache about it, but you and I we're doers. We're action oriented people. We're going to do something, at least take action somehow. And Stella, your first protection dog changed your life. Let's hear all about that. So
Changed
beautiful.
my life. So there's always a story that I love to tell about Stella. And unfortunately, Stella recently passed away very unexpectedly. It was like part of my soul really was. So if I get emotional, I apologize, but it was really like part of my soul was ripped out when she passed away in January. But so when I went up to Metro Canine in August of 2020 to meet Bobby and have him meet Stella, or have me meet Stella, one of his employees brought Stella out to me, and Stella sat down next to me. And Stella when I first met her, wasn't the loveliest dog. Like, she was sweet and whatnot, but she didn't need cuddles or anything like that. So she sat next to me and I was just petting her, and a stranger started to approach us. And I don't know if she just read my body language or whatnot. And this was coming off right on the heels of my incident. So, any man that approached me at that time, I was just kind of like hands off, like I want nothing to do with anyone, especially a man.
Yeah.
But he started to approach us, and she just leaned into my left leg and kind of put her weight against me and took her right paw and put it over my left ankle. And I swear, Jan, it was in that moment, it was like she was saying, it's okay. I've got you now. And when you brought up about how you had chills before, in that moment, and I have them now talking about it, I had such chills. And it was immediately then that I turned around and I said to Bobby, I want this dog. And I have to tell you, I brought her home and it changed my life. I didn't even necessarily have to work her. Just knowing what she was capable of doing and having her in my house gave me such courage that I was lacking since my domestic violence incident. I started to leave the house again because since then, even though it was COVID, I wasn't even walking around my block because I was so terrified. I would walk around my block. I would go to stores and, of course, bring her with me. But I started to smile. I started to laugh. I started to trust. I really think Stella calmed such a big part of my nervous system, which was something that was just in fight or flight mode since December 2019. And then I decided to keep up with her training. Even though she was completely trained, I felt like it was important, and it is, to keep up with the training. And then I fell in love with the training. It made me feel empowered. It gave me confidence. And I also really started to feel like I belonged again. And I found like a passion for life. So after training with Stella for a little bit and really kind of working on my healing journey through training the dogs and going to therapy, I ended up getting another dog named Luca. And I started to compete with Luca in Schutzen competitions. I trained Luca myself since he was an 8-week-old German Shepherd puppy. And then I started to compete. And after the sentencing hearing and after my divorce was final, I really felt like I was at a place in my own healing journey where I was ready to give back. And I knew what these dogs and this training had done for me. And I thought, well, what better way to be able to give back not only the physical safety, but also the emotional healing that these dogs have brought to me, to other survivors. And that is how Kelly's Canines, Tales of Courage was born. We officially launched in October of 2024. And what we do is we provide domestic violence survivors with trained protection dogs. So we place our own trained dogs with survivors. But then as of January 2026, we realized that not every survivor wants another dog in their house. A lot of survivors have gotten dogs because of what they've been through or already have dogs. So now what we are also doing, in addition to placing dogs, is we will evaluate a survivor's own dog. And if our master trainer feels like, yeah, we can get that dog to do some protection work, Kelly's Canines will pay for the survivor to train with their own dog in protection.
Isn't that just like the best story anybody out there has ever heard? I mean, come on.
Thank you.
It's like, Kelly, it makes me cry. I'm crying because I love dogs. My dog is snoring at my feet right now. I'm hoping that, Eric, my brilliant sound engineer, is not going to have any problem because he's getting older. He's a little Yorkie, silky dog, and he has to be right either on my lap, by my side, at my feet all the time. And so he's snoring right now.
That's healing. So
yeah.
Even when these dogs aren't training or, we're not doing bite work with them, just their presence alone is so healing. It's something, the way I always describe it is Stella was that constant in my life and I have great, I really don't have family. Both my parents are deceased and whatnot. So going through this, it was really my friends, and people have their own lives. My friends were incredible, but Stella was the one thing that was there for me every step of the way as I rebuilt my life. And that was powerful. So we hope to do that for survivors in addition to giving them safety, giving you that thing, this dog that will be by your side through it all.
Hi, I'm Michaela, and I'm part of the team at the Jan Broberg Foundation. And I want to take the time today to tell you about something we built called the Survivor Circle. So the Survivor Circle is a free online community for anyone who has been through trauma, shame, or abuse. And it's somewhere you can actually exhale with no pressure, no judgment. It's just people who get it. When you join, you'll meet our community mascot, Dottie and Spotty, and you'll get a warm welcome, a walkthrough of our guidelines, and find your shared ground for sharing. So we host circle meetings regularly, round robin and speaker style, and you can share whenever you feel ready. Again, No pressure. So there's also the TIME program, which stands for Trauma, Interrupted, Mitigated, and Expressed. So it's a peer-led 12-phase recovery framework, plus workshops, guests, and of course, first looks at everything coming from the podcast and JBF. So this program was built because too many survivors are out there carrying something heavy with nowhere safe to put it down. And I know that feeling personally because I am a survivor. I may not be ready to share my full story yet, but honestly, that's exactly why the Survivor Circle matters so much to me. Because I don't have to have the words yet. I just have to show up. If any of this sounds like you, please come. Not when you're ready, not when you have the words, now. Because you've carried this long enough and you don't have to carry it alone anymore. Please join us free at circle.janbrobergfoundation.org or just tap the link in the show notes. I really hope to see you there.
Okay, so here's my pact with you, Kelly, because I love Kelly's Canines, Tails, spelled Tails, of courage. It's just the greatest thing ever. So someday, my son has talked about this for years, and he's got me totally signed up for it. I'm, still trying to get the foundation funded and going forward. We have our 3 pillars. One is awareness, which is education, and let's educate parents and the adults about what grooming looks like. Because guess what? It's happening to you. And that predator is just looking for your trust so he or she can get to your kid. I always say he because it is predominantly male. I'm sorry to say that, but that's just the truth. Anyway, so we're, education on grooming, our podcast, that's what this is. Our second pillar, that's about community, getting this survivor community to come together for their own healing. We have a beautiful program. It's all free, and an online community, all free, to come and be in a time. Trauma Interrupted, Mitigated, and Expressed is our healing program, which is kind of like AA for, it's a 12-step program. It's a 12-phase program that allows you to be with a small group of other survivors that get it and that understand fully, that don't ever, question you. They are just there to support. So that's the community piece, bringing survivors together, because survivors like you and me and a million others want to do something to make it better for the next generation. But that starts with us. We have to heal us. We have to mitigate our trauma. We have to be committed to that. And we have to do those things that allow us to have a better quality of life, a better job, and to get involved in advocacy. And that's the justice pillar. That next pillar is justice. How do we advocate and get things to be better and to change so that our, children, our grandchildren, our nieces and nephews, whatever, we want the world to be a safer place, and we want justice to actually, for children to have that voice. I'm promising you, because the big picture is we want to do sanctuaries. We want to have places where, maybe there's 30 tiny homes, or maybe they don't call them that now. They call them something different, or mobile homes, or a big house with many, many rooms, but places for people to come with their dogs into a sanctuary setting where if you're leaving a domestic violence situation, you have some kids, you have a pet, where do you go for more than 30 days? Well, you got to have a home. Right. You got to have a place to go where there's access to this stuff. So we're going to have that. Those sanctuaries are going to happen, because my son, who also loves animals, he wants it to have an animal sanctuary, a garden. People get to be trained, and if they don't know a vocation or something, we'll work with the universities or whatever's nearby to help people get on their feet and stay as long as they want. They can live there forever. That's what we want to establish. And so I'm making a pact with you that we're going to have a place where we can train more dogs, and we can train people's dogs who have brought their dogs, and we're going to work with you. That's what we're going to do.
Please. Because my goal is, right now, we're really primarily focused on the East Coast, because there's a piece of this where the survivor has to come to training. So kind of like you guys are doing, we're also building a community, because now all the survivors, we're training together. And there's nothing more beautiful than the friendships that evolve from the bond of people going through something similar. And I've witnessed that as well. So survivors have to get to training. And we do have out-of-state survivors that make the commitment to drive 3 hours once a week to come to training. So we don't discriminate because of where you live. But my goal is I want to expand across the country because I think this program, really needs to be everywhere. So I'm in. I'm in to do that with you.
Awesome. Because I always have, my heart is huge with empathy and filled with love for all my fellow survivors and those who have survived various kinds of trauma, in their childhood, tweenhood, teen, early adulthood, that, brain's still developing, all that stuff, but even because so often, survivors of domestic violence often were kind of set up with some childhood trauma that has already happened. And, it's hard to, and then when you get the really smart ones, they're so good at manipulating and looking good and getting what they want and just and there it is. And now it's your partner and now they're strangling you. I mean, so we don't want people to think that this is only for what we do is really for adults. It's really our mission is to mitigate what's happened maybe in your childhood or in your violent, afterward, what, and violence doesn't mean physical all the times. It means emotional. It means exactly all these things that we are talking about. It's all trauma.
Absolutely.
That literally leaves you with no confidence, literally leaves you scared. And I totally believe, I know people who've done equine therapy where they get on the horses, they take care of the horses, and something about that rhythm, the things, it is impacting the neuro systems, of the brain. It is impacting the central nervous system and how they're processing trauma, all those things. Now with dogs, it would be the same, like what you said.
Absolutely.
That just thrills me because I love dogs. I've rescued so many dogs in my life, including the one at my feet, came to me from a rescue online. Somebody had died and little 94-year-old man, 2 dogs. And I had to jump on it and I got those dogs from about 4 hours away.
Best dog ever.
Best dog ever. My little dog. The other one
always
has passed away.
How it works.
Yep.
But
it's
you're
true.
right.
That's the best dog ever.
They're so healing. It really is. And you said something before that I wanted to point out. With your foundation, you're doing something long term. And I feel like we at Kelly's Canines, we're doing that too. There are so many great nonprofits and organizations that help out with violence, interpersonal violence, abuse, children, women, men. But what I also found is that a lot of it was short term or in the crisis.
Yeah.
As we know, safety is an ongoing issue for someone who's experienced domestic violence or sexual assaults. And I feel like these dogs, this is my justice. The system wasn't giving me safety. I found it on my own. And now I'm doing something that the system doesn't do, where I'm actually providing survivors with safety, something tangible, long term.
I love it. I just love it so much. I have a friend that, had a dog but a survivor of very, very severe long-term, she diagnosed with CPTSD, the whole thing, on disability. There's only less than $1,000 a month. And I remember when she wanted to get the dog trained so that the dog could go with her because, loud sounds, certain settings, somebody approaching, blah, blah, blah. There's a million things. She needed that dog to be a service animal, but where do you get the money? It was not easy for her to find, even if it's only $200 or $300, when you live on less than $1,000 and you're trying to, half of it goes to a place to live, and that place includes a community bathroom, but not in your own, and you've got a dog and I'm just like, if people really understood the needs and why this is needed, I just can't believe that they won't give. They won't give so that we can help survivors, because we've made some micro grants, to get a car so they could go to a secondary job when the car broke. permanently, that already had a broken window
Right.
and da da da. It wasn't a great car to begin with, but for 3 years it worked and now it doesn't. What do you do when this is the tiny bit that you have to get a permanent place to live in a trailer where you help somebody do that, that they could not be homeless anymore. These are survivors of
Right.
severe, experiences. What you survived is severe, what I went through, and we know what they need, but the system doesn't really get it. Yes, in the moment, great. I had a wonderful FBI agent too that always stood by us and whatever. But the aftermath of what happened is really where the story starts, you know? So I
Exactly.
want to
And
know
really
how,
where the healing begins.
yeah, absolutely. It has to because you and you don't even know. And of course, I'm old. And so I had no idea what I trauma informed. None of those words. Mental health, like you
Yeah.
could get money on your health insurance to see what's called a counselor
Right.
then, a counselor. Well, what would they talk about? You know, there was nothing like that. There was no therapy that I could access. And I certainly didn't have the money to do it as it came into play more and more in the 80s and 90s when I'm, in my 20s and 30s and trying to figure out, married again, divorced again, married again, divorced again, and not
Right.
realizing that's what it's all. I needed help. I needed professional help. I needed a program. I needed a lot of things. And
Yeah.
now we want to give that. We want to do that for survivors. And I think that's
Right.
pretty worthy of funding.
Yeah.
We
I
got
think
to
we want to just make the road a little easier since we've
yes.
walked it or some of us have run it.
Yeah.
I think that's the goal for anyone who is in this space advocating is we just want to share what we've learned, what helped us, and maybe make someone else's path while they're navigating this road just a little bit
Mhm.
easier.
Yeah, exactly. And it's interesting because the thing that I think you hit on that's so important with this, with the dogs and the ability to feel the additional piece of safety that they give to you, because safety is like number one for a survivor. The minute you feel unsafe, you're out of there. The minute there's, it's like if you can't turn that part down, like you're safe, you're okay. Are you ever going to ask for a raise? Are you ever going to, how long will it take you to leave that abusive relationship? It is so important. And that's the thing that I love about what you're doing. It's that you're handling the safety, not just within the person, the survivor, but by having an additional piece, that's by your side. So tell me, you talked about the biting thing. So tell me all about all that, because I think it's so interesting that if you can train a dog when it's okay to bite,
Yes.
yay, I got this safety thing going. Now I can work on some other things.
Yeah. So the dogs that we place, we literally start training them as 8-week-old puppies. And in the beginning, a lot of it is through play. We're teaching these dogs how to play and to bite during play, as well as building their prey drive, because a dog is going to bite out of prey drive because really we're playing a game with them. And for them, this is fun. And then we really build on those skills, as well as really obedience is the most important part of bite work. You need to have a very obedient dog that knows all of its commands and listens really well, as well as a handler who has a good bond with that dog and has, is able to utilize those commands and get their dog under control. Control is incredibly important. So
Yeah.
what a lot of our dogs are taught to do is to not only bark and to alert on command, but also to bite on command. So there's words that I will give my dogs, my personal protection dogs, because now I have 3 of them. I have 2 German Shepherds and a Doberman. And I give them a word and maybe I'll point and they will just automatically bite that person. But now we also know that sometimes I might not be in a position where I can verbally speak. So our dogs are really to assess what is a threat and what isn't a threat. The other cool thing that the dogs can do, and my personal dog does this, is that if I give my dog a command, what he would do, and I'll just use you, Jan, as an example. Let's say I send my dog to you and I give him a certain command. What he will do is sit right in front of you. He'll run to you and then sit and then just jump and bark in your face, which is really scary. And a lot of times what will happen is someone will say, okay, I'm not coming any closer, because all then I'd have to do is either A, give my dog a command and that barking stops and he's going to bite you. Or if you make a move towards me, my dog automatically knows to bite you.
So that's amazing. And I want this for every survivor, because I know how much having a dog, none of my dogs are trained like that, but having a dog has just been, they always love you. They always are happy to see you. They're never in a bad mood. At least they might be sad or something. I can tell my dog, I was out of town for a few days and I came back and kind of looked at me like, really? You don't take me with you or whatever,
Right.
But right away, he's right there and everything's fine. Like nothing happened. I didn't abandon him for 5 days. That didn't happen. Right. And so it's really interesting, the how much joy there is in that, and dogs they're hard work too. And not everybody's in a position to have a dog, but I really do believe in that, how that works to put your own healing also in place as you're training a dog.
Absolutely.
It's training you. It's training your brain to go, this is what safety looks like, and I can have it, and I will have it, and I do have it. And that is
and
so
I have
important.
to tell you,
Yeah.
There's the most powerful thing that I have noticed is, I'm very active within Kelly's Canines. I interact with, I'm the one texting all the survivors about training and whatnot. I'm at every single training session with them. So I'm very, very hands-on from beginning to when the survivors kind of move on from the program. But I have to tell you, one of the most powerful things about this for me has been to watch survivors when their dog first bites, whether it's them seeing what the dog we've given them can do, or when a survivor's training their own dog and that dog finally bites for the first time. The survivor's face just lights up every single time. It brings me to tears every time and gives me the chills. The day after Stella died, it was really important for me. One of our survivors was going to train that day and I didn't want to miss it. So I went up there. I didn't work my other dogs, but I went for training. And her dog, and I'll get emotional talking about it, but her dog bit for the first time. And the smile on her face, and I was able to record it for her so she could have that moment forever. And she texted me on the way home and she was just like, you have no idea what this has done for me today. And I do know because I've been there too, but just to know what this is doing for these survivors, and it's across the continuum. Every survivor's face lights up and they always say like, I haven't had to send my dog or my dog hasn't had to defend me yet, but just seeing what they can do, it changes the course of their healing journey. It really does.
It's like it released something that had been lodged there that I have to feel scared all the time for the rest of my life. Somehow everything is going to always be unsafe, and that you can't just say, stop doing that and have it go. There's a process, and that process, that sounds like what exactly happened. Like that's the release for them. Okay.
Yep. You're so right. And I think, it's people don't understand that healing is not possible without safety. It's just impossible. No one can heal if they're not feeling safe. So in order for someone to begin to heal, they have to have a feeling and a sense of safety. And I think that's what's also so powerful for these survivors is in those moments, it hits them. I'm safer with this animal. And then they can start to heal little by little.
So beautiful. I love it so much. So what, just thinking of so many that might feel trapped, whether they're trapped in their own mind and body from past, childhood trauma, abuse. They're currently in a situation where they feel trapped. Is there anything you could say to that person that's currently just in an abusive situation and they feel stuck? What is there something you could tell them or say to them? Or
Yeah. I think first and foremost, trust your gut. I know sometimes when we're in a situation where we're being abused, whether it's physical, emotional, or have been as a child or in the past, it's hard to trust ourselves. But what you have been through is not your fault. There's no reason you should not trust yourself. So trust your gut. If your gut is telling you that something is wrong, or to do something or not to do something, trust that instinct. I think the other important thing is for someone who is either currently in a toxic or an abusive relationship, or maybe feels trapped inside themselves because of what they've been through in the past. Talk to somebody. Don't take this on yourself. Talk to someone that you trust, whether it's a family member, a friend, or a therapist. Make that call to someone and say, I need to tell you something and I need you to just listen and then to help me. Like, don't be afraid to tell someone what it is you need from them. Do you want advice or do you just want a venting session? Do you want someone to listen? Tell them what you need from them. I think the other important thing is, and I know this from my personal experience, is that going through any kind of trauma, whether that's, domestic violence, sexual assault, sexual abuse, whatever it may be, things can feel so dark at times. And I know it often is really difficult to see that things will get better or that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. I feel like I am living proof that healing is possible, that peace is possible, and that safety is possible. If you were to ask me the day after everything happened to me, even years after, if I would be sitting here today with you or running a nonprofit, telling my story publicly, I would have laughed and said, there's no way. I didn't know if I'd make it through what I was going through. But I'm living proof that healing is possible. So hang in there, because I promise there will come a day where this does not rule your life anymore.
That's so beautiful. That might be where we end this. I mean, I just love that idea, because what feels impossible or felt impossible at one time, and many people might be in that place, just to know that keep going, keep fighting this very difficult fight, but yet know that there will be relief, that there are programs, there are therapists, there are people who want to help, and trying to do it alone is really impossible. You really do have to find somebody, a community, something where you are heard, believed, seen, supported, and you can know that, oh gosh, these people, they're a little farther on that journey. Or, yes, I feel like I'm living proof of that too, like you, Kelly. And that's why I started the podcast. My son was like, tell other people's stories, Mom. That's where it's at. People need to know that they're not the only one, and every time I have a guest like you that just is so open and so able to tell us, where you were and where you are now, it gives one more glimmer of hope, one more ray of sunshine, and I definitely can see how things they will get better if you are, open to doing the work, listening,
Yes.
talking, expressing somewhere. You don't have to go public like we did. How was your experience on Toxic doing that show? What was that experience like for you? I want to know how that
I
has
have
gone.
to tell you, that was how I got my justice. When the system failed me, I remember sitting at that sentencing hearing and I was pissed. I made it known that I did not agree with this plea deal. I didn't want it to happen. And one time, one of my lawyers said to me, justice is a really funny thing these days, Kelly. And that always stuck with me because I think when my lawyer said that to me, I realized I don't think the system's going to give me justice. I'm going to have to get it for myself. And toxic was 100% that. My experience with toxic was incredible. It was the production company. It was Breaklight Pictures. They were fantastic from start to beginning. Elizabeth Chambers, she was just phenomenal. They did such a beautiful job with my story with the 43 minutes that they had. They really did. I couldn't have been prouder. And you know what? That was how I got my justice when the system failed me. And now I continue to get my justice through the nonprofit.
And it's interesting because I believe that when we feel moved and it's not easy to go public with your story. It's not easy. Not everybody believes you. Not everybody says nice things. Some people say really mean things, and then they make memes about your my wonderful parents that about killed me. I was like, oh my gosh, my dad is such a good man, and my mother too. They both have now passed. Just my mother just recently, and I took care of her. She lived with me, and I was her caretaker, and she had terrible Alzheimer's, and it was hard. It was very hard because my mother had gone back to school and become a social worker, and she placed, hundreds of kids in good foster homes and did adoptions in families couldn't be reunited and kids had to be taken. And it was all the letters and all the things that I discovered in going through so many boxes of things that she had received from people, and knowing that her heart was in the right place when she wrote our book, and we finally self-published that. And then we went very public once the book, our little self-published book, and then that got picked up, and then the 2 documentaries and the 9-part series on Peacock, A Friend of the Family, which I'm so proud of. I look at all of that, never knowing that any of that would happen, but knowing that going public, I was as ready as I could be. You don't know what it feels like until you do it, and you don't know if there's going to be some hard things about that too. But in the end, that's how I feel I got my justice too. And so anybody that wants to do that, go that route, I'm hoping to create a series, something that will be filmed professionally, maybe similar to like Toxic, where we are telling people's stories. I want to do it in a scripted type series, kind of like a Law and Order SVU, but what happens the day after the court just for those people, which never happens for real.
I know.
But
I know.
But I've loved the stories that they've had there. And I've seen the trauma-informed language through the 20, however many years, and I'm like, how do I get a hold of Mariska and say, okay, if you're tired of doing that, could you come produce with me the aftermath story? Because it's real. And that's what I feel like that's where the training needs to happen now, because that will affect the justice system, the legal system. If detectives and the people, those first responders, the social workers, the people around, these situations, could have the information of what's going to happen for the next 20 years after it's supposedly over. Well, that's the story that needs to be told now so that we can get that part, into the legal system, that part funded so that we have ways for people to heal. So I'm glad that your experience
and
was
I don't
so
want to
good.
make it seem like speaking out was so easy. I have to be honest, like when the show aired, it was I really kind of dissociated for a little bit after. It brought me right back into that trauma of being like, oh my God, now Chris is really going to come kill me. Like, cause that's the first time I publicly said his real name and showed his face. So, I actually, right after the show aired, I revamped my entire camera system to make it even more powerful and better. So there were a good few weeks where I was struggling, but I was able to snap out of it easier. That's the other thing I want to say. Like, I think healing is always an ongoing process. I don't think I'm ever going to ever be truly healed. Things still trigger me. I still have really tough days, but I'm able to manage and get myself out of it quicker and better. And I think that's the goal. I really think that's the goal.
It really is, because I don't think it's fair to say to anybody, I'm healed, you can do it too. Because ED at the end of heal healed, like it's in the past, it's not really fair. And I think if we set people up that, gosh, they don't have any, they don't have bad days, they don't have any triggers, left, that would be untrue, because I do too. And that's why I just finished our new program time that my son and I co-created, and basically based on his 12-step programs through AA and NA that he's been through because of his own story, which he will tell someday in his own time. He was like, this is what's missing from the 12-step programs that I've been in, and here's what's great about it. And so here's how to, and so anyway, this trauma-informed program that we beta tested ourselves with our whole team of volunteers in it, we all found things and got things and had some activation and some triggering and had to go, gosh, what that means is not that we should run away. It just means dive in there a little bit deeper and see what is that. What's still there? And you get an opportunity to narratively, narrative therapy is the kind of the basis of the program, but you're with a group. It's safe. You can share or not share. Doesn't matter. But what does matter is that people are there to support you. And that's so important for every step along this way. So building just a small community of people that get it really does matter. So I think that
so important.
What you said is so important, that it is healing, but it gets easier to notice and to figure it out, because you shouldn't think that you'll never be activated or triggered again. That's not true. Something new in your life happens, and all of a sudden there's a memory that you that was subconscious that now has come forward, and you're like, oh,
absolutely.
Okay. So yeah, people should not feel like they have to be, at the 99 percentile before they join a community or they get involved in take your dog to Kelly's Canines. Let's get the dog some training and get there. I want to help support that in any way I can. So we will be talking again.
I'm excited. I can't wait.
I'm serious. I just think there's a lot of us survivors that really truly want to do big things in the world, but we almost have to come together in some way in order to make the movement, the survivor-led movement, strong enough to gain the traction, the funding, and the legal adjustments that need to happen within our system. I just really feel like we have to come together.
I agree. I think there's no better people to make the difference that we need to make than the people who have gone through it. It's us.
Yeah, it's us. It really is. I cannot thank you enough for being my guest today, sharing your story. You're so brilliant, and brilliant of spirit too. It's just really been a pleasure to be here and to hear what you're doing. I am so sorry about everything that happened to you, and yet thank you for everything that has become in your life for all of us to benefit from your story, from your foundation. I just love it. And I know you're having something in June. I want to do a live or something with you to get that out, because I don't know that this conversation will be out by then. And I want people to go to your open house, in
so
Whippany, New Jersey.
Yes, we're having an open house June 6th in Whippany, New Jersey at the Hanover Township Community Center at 15 North Jefferson Road from 12 to 3. It's a completely free event, but we're going to be doing some dog demos. It's going to be a family-friendly event. We're going to have activities for kids, food trucks. We're doing free self-defense classes for women. So it's going to be a really great event with some really wonderful vendors. Last year we did an open house and people actually flew in for it. So even if you live out of state, you can still come. We would love to have you. And I'd love to do that live with you. Sure. Absolutely.
Okay. So that we can get that message out there. Now we have the little piece of you talking about it. We will definitely try to take that little clip and get that out there before June 6th. Even if our whole conversation doesn't come out until after, because we want people to go and see those dog demos of what you're doing. I just love it. Thank you so much, Kelly. And may you have an incredible rest of your day. And hopefully none of this, triggered anything but more joy and more confidence and more like, we're badasses.
We are. And again, Jan, thank you so much. You really are. I don't know if you realize how iconic you are in this community. You went through something so horrific, and to be where you are today, doing what you're doing, you are so inspirational for so many of us who have seen your story and followed you. So thank you. Like I said, it's almost dreamlike to be sitting across from someone like you. So thank you.
Well, we're going to meet up and we're going to team up. So
Please.
Get ready.
Please.
Okay.
I cannot wait.
I cannot wait either, because I can tell that we are going to be fast friends. You're just so beautiful, and I just love your energy, and I can't wait to make all of
Me
our
too.
energies come together in this huge movement, this survivor-led movement. That's what we're about. And I really appreciate your time and your generosity of your spirit and what you're doing. So
Thank you.
thanks again. And thank you for those kind words, because sometimes I
Thanks,
don't really
Jan.
know. I mean, I sit in my little podcast room and, I don't know. So thanks for saying that.
You
It
are.
means a lot to me. Thank
Really
you.
are. Thank you.
Okay. Best rest of your day. And we will talk again soon.
You too. Okay. Thanks again.
Hey everyone, my name is Austin Tanner, and I'm Jan's son and the executive producer of this podcast. On behalf of our whole team, we want to thank you for listening to our show today. These conversations are not always easy, and we don't take it lightly that you stayed with us all the way through. Everything you heard today can be found in our show notes. You'll find links to our website, janbrobergfoundation.org, our newsletter, and how to join our free online community, The Survivor Circle. This is where the work continues between episodes, and we hope to see you there. Thank you so much for listening today and for being part of our survivor-led movement. Until next time, over and out on two.